Hello! Today I am here with Stephen Chbosky, author of My High School Career, Perks of Being a Wallflower, and newly Imaginary Friend.
Yes.
He's also a writer-director. We'll get into all of that.
Yes.
How are you?
I'm wonderful. I mean, you're incredibly tasteful. If you guys knew how tasteful this man's apartment was, every single inch of this place is kind of perfect. Versus, as I was telling you, the apartment where I lived in New York City when I wrote The Perks of Being a Wallflower, I kind of like, we're not worthy. This is one of those, like,
No.
I can't even, you know, you're kind of the grown-up and I'm still kind of the kid. So,
No.
bravo, bravo.
Thanks, I've got one thing going for me.
You have many things going for you, young man.
So, when I learned that you were publishing a new novel this year, I heard you speak about it and knew that it took 10 years to write.
Mm-hmm.
700 plus page horror novel, Imaginary Friend.
Yes.
I wondered, how did it take 10 years to write this novel? But then reading it, I thought, like, how did it not take longer? It is so intricate and detailed.
Thank you. Well, I think for me, it didn't take 10 years of writing. Let me dispel any notion that all I did was toil in a salt mine for 10 years every day. The last 10 years of my life have been the most productive and the kind of really the most amazing I've ever had. Like, I'm about to turn 50, and so from 40 to 50, it's been blazes. Yeah. I got married. I've had 2 children. I directed the Perks of Being a Wallflower movie. I directed Wonder.
Yes.
I wrote Beauty and the Beast. And whenever I wasn't doing everything I just mentioned, I was always coming back to Imaginary Friend. It was an idea that I had a long time ago, like about 17 years ago, and it wouldn't let me go. And so, you know, you do what you can. You write for 50 pages, and then ring, it's time to go make, oh my God, we got funding for Perks, let's go.
Yeah.
A year and a half later, you go back to it, and I kept coming back because it kept calling me home.
What was the longest chunk of time in that 10 years of not working on this story?
Probably, I would say when I made the Perks of Being a Wallflower movie. So I made the movie, and then I would say, and with the selling of the movie as well, the post was very long. Probably a year and 8 months.
Was it difficult to get back into it? I mean, there's so many characters and so much detail.
Yes, well, the characters were not difficult to get back into because I love the characters and I felt very close to them. What was difficult is some of the, because there's, as you know, because you know the book, there's mythology, there are rules, there's a lot of, it's very, very intricate that way. And so a lot of that was, sometimes I just simply had to just keep moving forward, almost like, you know, your car breaks down, you got to walk till you get the gas can, and then come back and then revisit. So it was a lot of that. That was the difficult part. The characters were easy. It was that.
Okay. You mentioned Stephen King in the acknowledgments.
Absolutely.
When I was in high school, I read a short story of his called The Man in the Black Suit, and I thought about that quite a bit because
I've never read that one.
It reminded me so much of this story. I mean, Stephen King in general, an entire line of dialogue on one single page, or a different font for a character's dialogue, or different letters are capitalized. And I'm curious if there were any of those decisions that you made initially that you decided
to scrap?
Belong. Yeah.
There was nothing that I did that way, but a lot of those things you're talking about, the fonts and the switching and some of the because there's, like, as you know, there are clues buried within clues sometimes. Yeah. And so it wasn't so much getting rid of any of that, it was more of like really being disciplined and really pulling it back as much as I could. So it would still have all the cool stuff, but I never wanted to feel like style over substance. There was a reason for all that stuff that I did. And so let's say the toggling. I was like, okay, let me make sure that this is very easy to read. Let's make sure, like, if I'm going to do it, let me do it in a way that it's easy on the eyes, things like that. Or it was really about that, I would say.
When you sat down day one to start this project, I'm sure it evolved over time, maybe, but what did you know day one?
Day one I knew, that's a great question. I knew the boy, Christopher. I knew his mom. I knew that the original idea was, it comes to, like, you know, when you were a kid, when I was a kid, we all did this. You look up in the sky and you see the clouds. We all did it, yeah. And you'd be like, oh, that looks like a dog, a hammer, a face, whatever.
Right.
And so the original idea was, what would happen if a little boy looked up into the sky and realized it was always the same cloud face looking back at him? That was the first idea. I also had the moment outside of his school where he's all alone, the school buses go away, and his mom is there, and he looks up, and he's like, and there's the cloud face, he's all alone. Hello, can you hear me? And there's the thunderclap. If you can hear me, blink your left eye. And then the cloud face goes like this, and it drifts away, luring him into the woods, right?
Right.
That's what I had. I had that in the title. So I was like, it's a single mom, a little boy, a cloud face, the woods, Western Pennsylvania, and the title Imaginary Friend. You know what I mean? And I knew a couple of like vague twisties, maybe. Vague, that's kind of it.
Wow.
And so I just started. And it was, there was a great thing that Stephen King wrote on writing, in his book, his wonderful book on writing. Oh, you have it?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
There it is.
Oh, there you go. Amazing. I have it too. Where he talks about how if he starts a book and he doesn't quite know what it's going to be, then no one can guess. And I thought, all right, I'm going to, he's the master, he's my hero. Let me try what that feels like. Let me just start with these vague notions and let's see where it goes.
Wow. There's an ensemble of pretty intense characters in Imaginary Friend. I mean, there's so many, and writing in third person is like
brand new experience for me. I loved it. Yes,
definitely. And then I found it fascinating how Christopher's mother was often referred to as Christopher's mother, and the sheriff. I mean, we learn his name at some point, but he's known as the sheriff.
He's the sheriff.
Yeah.
Do you know why?
No, I don't.
Okay, this is why. So even though it is the third person narrative, I did a lot of little techniques to make it feel like, from an emotional core, like it's from the point of view of a child.
Right.
Children, you remember this from when you were a little kid. You'd be like this. Oh, hi, Steve's mom. Hi, right? That's how we think about it. We think of everything in relationship to either a job or like the relationship to the mom. So saying Christopher's mother over and over again is evocative of childhood. Saying the sheriff instead of his name, or Mrs. Henderson, or let's say Mrs. Collins. They all have first names. They all have names.
Right.
But that's not how the book regards them, because that's not how Christopher would regard them. He would regard this whole kid is like, that's the sheriff, that's my teacher, Mrs. Henderson, that's Mrs. Collins, who's the lady that works at the thing. And so I kept that. That's in there to evoke childhood. There are so many allusions to the Brothers Grimm in there. He walks into the woods in the little red, into literally a red hoodie. He's Little Red Riding Hood. There's all these things. I just want you to feel, whether you know it or not, that I want you to read from a childlike place, because I wrote it from a childlike sense of wonder. Even though it's scary, even though it's about a lot of adult stuff, I never wanted to lose that innocence. That innocence is integral to the book.
Yeah, it was fascinating because that comes through even when the plot gets like so intense and it's terrifying. That really does read like that.
Yes. Well, I'm glad that it feels like that. It's funny, when I first brought it to market, I met with 5 different editors and publishers, and I chose my editor, Wes Miller. There were two leading people, and Wes Miller, the man I eventually chose, who's amazing, and Grand Central and that team, and there was another team that I won't name because they're great too, but it was amazing because the other editor, who I really liked, said, I don't know what. I think the sheriff being called the sheriff is kind of like strange. Mm-hmm. And Wes said, you know what I love? I love that you called the sheriff the whole time. And I'm like, you completely get it. Without even knowing, it wasn't a Rorschach test. I wasn't testing anybody. Yeah. I thought, you get it. And I could see from even the fact that you asked me about that, which is a very good question. I've been on the road. I've been doing so many interviews about the book, and bravo. Because very few people catch that. So thank you.
Thanks.
That energy has not changed with the internet. It hasn't changed with social media.
You're directing Dear Evan Hansen.
Dear Evan Hansen, yes.
I'm curious if there's anything about your vision for that film that you can share.